What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another fight breakdown. Saturday, December 17th, live on Showtime. We got a fight, a scrap, a really good scrap. Really excited for this fight between two young, undefeated fighters for no reason at all. And when I say no reason, I think we should be getting more fights like this on a regular, for sure. But we don't get these kind of fights because when you got two young guys that have potential to be stars and future champions, usually they try to get fighters like this to avoid each other. At least until it's at a mandatory position or a championship position. You know what I'm saying? But this fight is happening, and this is not for any mandatory or anything like that. This is just two really good young fighters that many of us are, hardcores has been watching. We're excited to see them fight, and I'm looking forward to. I'm really, really hyped about this fight. I'm sorry for the amount of time I took to do this breakdown, but I can tell you that, I've been. It's whenever I'm taking a long time to get to a certain breakdown, it's because I'm having a hard time to pick a winner. You know what I'm saying? I mean, sometimes I'm just busy, but this is one that I started doing film study a little bit last week, and to be honest, even as tonight, I'm still not completely sure or confident in my pick, because I really believe that this is a true 50-50. I see their flaws. I wish there was more fight footage available, like for some of the recent fights. Michel Rivera, I really wanted to see the Ladarius Miller fight. That was a fight that I wanted to see because it was against a southpaw that I really respect and I'm familiar with, and I've seen him fight. I didn't get that. What I did get was the Fidel Maldonado Jr. fight, which I did watch and did full study on because Maldonado is a southpaw. So I did get a chance to check that out for Michel Rivera. And for Frank Martin, I was trying to find a Jackson Marinas fight. That fight was on Showtime. I did see the fight when it went down, but I wanted to do some film study on it, and I couldn't find it anywhere, man. I had a lot of trouble finding that fight. I really wanted to see. I already seen the highlight clip, but I wanted to see a full fight. I wasn't able to get it, but I was able to watch some of their more recent fights. I was looking for a southpaw orthodox fight for Michelle, but it's all good. We're gonna get through it anyway. All right, but I did do film study on the Romero Duno fight. I went back and watched that. I watched both of their fights with Jerry Perez because they were recent fights. Jerry Perez was undefeated when he fought Frank Martin, and Frank Martin stopped him late in that fight. Stopped him late, and Michel Rivera actually fought Perez recently. It was actually his most recent fight a few months ago. All right, that went the distance, but Rivera was able to hurt him, drop him at some point in the fight, but it went the distance. Okay, so let's talk about the two fighters. You got Frank Martin. Frank Martin, 16 wins, 12 by knockout, no losses, no draws. He's been fighting as a pro since 2017. And he's 27 years old. He's shorter of the two. I mean, he's listed at 5'8". I don't know if he's really 5'8" or not, because I know Michel Rivera is 5'9", but it looks like Michel Rivera is a lot taller. Frank looks like he's very short. I haven't seen them side by side. I think tomorrow or today is the actual press conference. But Michel Rivera is a taller fighter of the two. He's taller. I think he has him by reach by a few inches. All right. So Frank, usually, for the most part, most of the time, he's shorter than most of his opponents. So it's not like he's not used to fighting shorter guys or fighting taller guys or whatever. But Michel Rivera, he's 24 years old. Okay. Like I said, he's taller and he has a reach advantage. All right. He's been fighting as a pro since 2016, Dominican fighter based out of Florida. And he likes to, he looks like Ali, he's a big fan of Ali. He wears the Ali trunks. He has the Ali haircut. He has that whole look. And I love this fight, man, because, as I'm watching the film study and I'm trying to learn and see exactly what each one of these fighters can do to exploit the other fighter, You know, I'm looking at all their flaws, and I feel like they're definitely getting better as they go on. You know, I've been watching both of them for like at least last couple years. I think Frank Martin, I think the first time I seen him was probably in an interview when they, I think after he did a sparring session with Tank Davis. I think that was the first time that I probably started watching him a little later than some of you guys. And I kept my eye on him after that. I started going back watching his fights. And I was like, yo, this kid got some potential, you know what I'm saying? But he's getting better with every fight. In fact, he's coming off of some good knockout wins against two of the best fighters he's fought, against Duno and Marinez. All right, so he's coming off of those two knockout wins. But let's talk about the fight. You know, let's start out with Michel Rivera. He's an orthodox fighter, and he's a fighter that he can pretty much do it all. You know, I think he has, he's more, he has a more like a variety of punches. You know, I think he could fight any kind of way. And I think in the Perez fight, in his most recent fight, you'll see that. You know, you can see him sitting in the pocket for the majority of these rounds in this fight. And he goes to the body, you know what I'm saying? He knows how to create space and look for those right openings and stuff. Doesn't smother himself. He knows how to fight in the pocket. All this time, most of the time, I've seen him fight long range, working behind the jab, you know, working the counter, you know, slipping and throwing counters and do all that good stuff. But in the most recent fight, when I seen him fight Perez, you can see him really sit comfortable in the inside, in the pocket, and hold his own on the inside. And I think that was a good approach to take for that most recent fight, because we know that Frank Martin likes to get busy on the inside, looks for opportunities to come in and be real physical, rough you up. All right, but for the most part, Rivera is a guy that likes to work behind his jab and create distance, you know, and fight from the outside. But he's proven that he can do pretty much everything. All right, not the biggest power in the world. I think his record's like 24-14, 14 KOs. All right, but he has some pop. Don't sleep. He can hurt guys. He's dropped guys, and he seemed for this, you know, this fight here is gonna be one of those fights where we're gonna see everything. We're gonna see how good these two really, really are. Because right now, it's really hard to call it. This fight kind of reminds me of another recent fight where we got between Ray Vargas and Mark Messiah, you know, because I feel that Ray Vargas had a longer, you know, taller, longer reach and everything, more of the orthodox type fighter, more of the traditional fighter, and more of the technical fighter, whereas Mark Messiah works off his explosiveness, his athleticism, his speed. He likes to jump in and lunge in and out of range. You know, that's the kind of fighter he is. And I see that a lot in Frank Martin. You know, he's a shorter fighter here, shorter reach, but he's very quick. He's very powerful. He's very explosive. He has really, really quick legs, much quicker than Michel Rivera. So Michel, even if he's going to try to keep the distance and use his jab, he has to be concerned a little bit with Frank and the way that he can move in so quickly. He's like a bunny. He likes to jump a lot. He likes to bounce a lot. He likes to, you know, when he steps in and steps out, he bounces very, very quickly on his feet. And he uses his feet as a good form of defense as well. And it's a good style matchup. You know, the more explosive fighter to me versus the more technical fighter. All right, but Frank, a lot more technical than Mark Messiah. You know, so don't sleep when I say that. I just think that Michel is probably the more technical, but I still believe that Frank is very technical. When it comes to defense between the two, though, I think that's the biggest flaws with both. You know, I think there's definitely a lot of openings for the both of them. I don't think neither one of them is that good at moving their head, you know, and I don't think they have that cat-like reflexes. Neither one of them do. You know, I think both of them head is kind of in the center most of the time. I think Frank is a little better on the defensive end, though, because at least with Frank, for the most part, he keeps that right hand up. He's the southpaw in this fight, so he likes to keep that right hand up for the most part. I think sometimes when he's exiting, You know, when he gets into an exchange and he's exiting, I think at times he kind of sleeps and keep his hands down, and that's where he gets countered. You know, we can see like a check left hook, you know, him lunging in with the left hand. Sometimes he could get countered with a check left hook, especially when he keeps his hands down. But for the most part, he likes to keep that right hand up, hold that phone for the most part. So I think he gets the edge. But as far as like head movement, I don't think neither one has those reflexes of where, you know, if they are in a position to get hit or counter with like a short, quick shot, I don't think either one of them is that good as just like moving ahead real quick and slipping like right in close range. You know what I'm saying? I think for the most part, they use distance and their legs for their defense and their gloves. It's just that when it comes to Michel Rivera, he keeps his gloves too low sometimes. He's kind of easy to counter, you know? So I give the edge when it comes to defense to Frank Martin for sure. I do think he's slightly quicker than Michel, but I think Michel has a great jab. And I think depending on how he used that jab, it can be helpful and it can help him win the fight. Frank, on the other hand, I think he's more like a guy that uses a jab, but more like to set up, create space. You know, he likes to probe and you know, set up the left hand. So that's what he's mainly looking for. He likes to set up the left hand and he uses the jab. It's just that sometimes when he throws a jab, he's throwing like a lazy jab and you can counter him. I was watching some of the Perez fight, you know, and he gets, sometimes you can time him because he'll throw the jab, like he'll come in and touch you with the jab, and then you kind of know that after him doing it one or two times, you know that the left hand is coming. And then he'll step in and then work on the inside while he's there before exiting. You know what I'm saying? So I seen that in the Perez fight that he kept getting time. I really wanted to go and watch the Jackson Marinas fight because I think Marinas is more of he has some similarities there with Michel Rivera. But they took that fight down. I was looking for like a couple of days to try to find that fight. I really needed to see that fight because I think Marinas is a very, very good opponent, a very underrated guy. But with that being said, the difference between the two is since we got a southpaw fighter against an orthodox fighter, I also noticed that with Frank, he's a lead foot dominant fighter, at least much more than what I got out of Rivera fighting. What's the guy that he's on? Oh, Maldonado. My bad, Maldonado. I think with when it comes to Michel Rivera, he likes to come in and use his jab, so he leaves that lead foot on the inside, where Frank likes to keep that foot on the right, on the outside, and so he could shoot that left hand and then get in a position and then work on the inside. He'll throw the left hand, get in, go throw a right hook to the body, and then, you know, or come with a hook up top and then kind of smother you at that point. You know, it just creates good angles when he's on the inside. And I think he's better at keeping that foot on the outside, whereas Michel keeps it on the inside because he's usually working the jab. The problem is with Michel, when he's keeping that left foot, that lead foot on the inside, okay, sometimes he likes to throw straight right hands, but if his opponent is circling to his right, which I saw in the Maldonado fight, you know, he kind of would shoot the right hand but leave himself off balance. And if you have a good enough fighter like a Frank Martin that can counter you with a right hook, it can you could get dropped and get hit with like a flash knockdown, which will put you down a couple points in a round, and we don't want that. You know, so I think when it comes to foot positioning, I think Frank Martin is better at that. But as far as the obvious advantages here, you got Michel Rivera that has that jab, has a much better jab, you know, and he knows he's a little bit better at, you know, for them, I don't want to say he's better, but he's a type of fighter that likes to be on the outside, whereas Frank can fight on the outside, but because he's shorter and has a shorter reach, he's trying to get in, you know. He might catch you with a big shot like he did against Duno, you know. Great pull counter, great timing on it. Caught Duno, you know, lunging in with a right hand. Frank is a guy that can take a quick step back and hit you with that pull counter left hand and put you to sleep. That's exactly what happened to Duno. In fact, he scored 2 knockdowns against Duno with the same punch and knocked him out in the second one. So he's a guy that's very explosive. Even though he's shorter, doesn't have the reach, he knows how to make up with it with his speed, his foot speed, his hand speed, and his just power. He's probably the bigger puncher between the two. And I'm basing that off the Perez fight. I think that the Perez fight with Michel Rivera was more of a fight, like a back and forth. A lot of punches were thrown. We saw a lot of phone boothing in that fight. Whereas Frank in his fight, he was kind of like moving laterally and just looking for spots to jump in and do the work on the inside. And 2, he scored that knockout. 2, he scored, he hurt Perez and got him out of there. All right, but what I've also seen and realized, though, even though I think that Michel Rivera is probably a little bit more versatile in his game, I still feel that I've seen Frank control a fight in different ways. And I mean that, like, when I originally seen the Jackson Marinas fight, where he was being very, very, very aggressive, I feel like in that fight he was aggressive. I felt like in the Perez fight he was aggressive, probably not as much as the Marinas fight, but he was aggressive there. But in the Duno fight, he was controlling the fight by fighting smart and being really defensive in that fight, really being cautious because Duno had a big punch, so he wouldn't just rush in a lunge. He was fighting very smart, using lateral movement. So I've seen him fight different fights too. It's just that, like, on the fly, I feel like Michel Rivera can do more because he can sit and stay in the pocket and just work on the inside, whereas Frank is like a flash. Like, Frank is just gonna jump in, boo, 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 throw, his combination, and then skate right out of there. He's not a guy that's gonna just sit and stay in a pocket unless he feels he has you hurt, unless he feels like he's backing you up and overwhelming you. He's not the type of guy that's gonna stay there. If he fights Michel Rivera, he's not gonna sit in the pocket with him. He's gonna come in, work, and get out of there. Michel Rivera has proven that he can stay in the pocket and work. And, he's a little bit more flat-footed, like I said. He doesn't have the super fast feet that Frank Martin. He's good on his feet. I know he calls himself Ali, but he definitely doesn't move like Ali. You know what I'm saying? He has a look that definitely doesn't move like him, but there's definitely some similarities in his game. But overall, when I was thinking about the outcome of this fight, I do think it could be really, really close. I do think that either fighter could win this one. It really depends on how the fight is played out. If Michel Rivera can find a way to stay out of range and work behind a jab, right, and keep Frank Martin from coming in on the inside. If he can get the timing right, and he can block a lot of those left hands as Frank charges in, and just take those step backs, stay out of range, he can control the fight. He can probably do it better than Perez did or Marinas did. He can probably do it better than those guys. But Frank, very quick, very explosive. And from what I've seen, Michel Rivera is a kind of guy that he might be taller and longer, but I've seen him give up his range in several fights. Like, he can do it. He has the ability, but I've seen him give it up. A guy that has a really good jab and that can stick that out there and keep the range out there, he could probably win the fight, but it's easier said than done because I see him give up that advantage that he has, and I think he will give it up at some point or certain points of this fight. Can Frank hurt him? I don't really know, but I think Frank could end up landing the more eye-catching shots, which could win him the fight, whereas I think Michel might work better with the jab, you know what I'm saying? He might catch Frank lunging in, might catch him with a couple of right hands, but I think they're going to really catch each other because when it comes to head movement, I don't think either one is great, like I said earlier. Very hard to call. Fight that I'm not planning on putting any money down. I'll tell you if I would. I think the only bet that I'll probably place is I'll probably put a very small amount for a draw, because I can see this, if it does go the distance, I can see this being like a draw. You know, I can see it being controversial. You know, you got two good fighters that we can't really tell what they can really do. You know, I don't know what they can really do, because I think that these fighters, once they level up, they'll show you more of their game. And I think we'll see more of what they can really do in this fight, but we'll see more of their flaws as well. You know, I don't know if both of these fighters are good at going to the body. I don't know if one of these fighters might be weak to the body. That's my point. Very hard to tell. You know, I have the Michel Rivera fight with Perez up, and I can just see him. He's going to the body. He's throwing uppercuts. He has a lot bigger of a selection of punches that he can catch Frank with. It's just that which one will hurt Frank and which one will he get hurt by as well. I really don't know. It's not enough for me to give you a real confident pick. But if I had to pick, I would probably lean a little bit towards Frank, based on the fact that Michel Rivera gives up his reach, he gives up his height, and also because, you know, Frank has that explosiveness, he has that power. You know, I think from a technical standpoint, Rivera brings more to the game, but his lack of defense is an issue. They both have defensive issues, but I think Frank is a little bit better at keeping his hands up. And we'll see, you know. I don't know, but I'm going to lean towards Frank. I'm keeping my money out of it. I'm not putting any money down. I think anybody can win this fight, but I will put some money down on a possible draw. All right, so that's going to be my pick, but I think Frank is where I would probably lean to if I had to pick someone. All right, should be a good fight. I'm not even predicting a knockout. It could be a knockout here because Frank can punch. You know, Michel Rivera can punch too. But again, I don't know. I'm just going to have to wait and see what they do. But I'm expecting it to go to distance. All right, and it should be a really good scrap. Make sure you watch the fight. It should be a good scrap. I don't think I'm going to be able to cover the fight live, but if I am, I will definitely jump on. All right, but anyway, I'll see you guys on a post-fight review. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, share the video if you could, and I'll see you guys on the next breakdown. I'm out of here. Peace.